This is the tutorial for the resin on canvas pour. What we have here is a 16 by 20 canvas. What I've done is taken push pins and put it in each little seam. You can see it close there. I just push those in to push the canvas off of the tabletop. I have my plastic down, and then I have my canvas right here. Now those push pins allow the resin to drip off, and then you don't have, puddling behind the canvas. So you can use the push pins, or you can just use little Dixie cups and set them underneath like that to raise it up. But you never want to pour on your canvas and then leave it flat on the surface. Materials that we have, I've gone ahead and emptied most of my mica powders, but in your little packages is your mica powder. This is what's going to color the resin. I've poured all of my colors into my little cups. Some of you chose glitter, some of you didn't, but here's a cup with the glitter in it as well. So you're going to go ahead and empty every mica powder into your little cups. Now, when you're using mica powder to color resin, keep in mind that you don't want to use too much. I've found that if you do use too much, it can interfere with the curing process. The same with glitter. I've used too much glitter before, and the resin starts to heat up and smoke. I can't explain to you what the chemical process is or the reason behind that, but so less is more with the mica, and you'll see you don't need a ton of mica to color your resin. You have a resin container and you have a hardener container. So the mixture is 50-50. We're going to mix those to create the resin. You have crushed glass, of course, optional. You don't need to use it. What I'm going to show you is kind of a geode, resemblance of a geode pour. You can pour whatever you'd like to pour. You can, with resin, you can copy like what I'm doing, but you can do multiple pours and just kind of have fun with it. You can use your stick to marble the resin. I'll show you a couple different pours on top of this. Now, if you have a 1, 2, or 3 canvas kit, of course your resin amounts are going to be different. So for your 2 canvas kits, you have 2 of these. For your 3 canvas kits, you have 3 of these. So you can create all at once. So you could take like a bigger container and mix them all at once, or you can take, you could just mix them one at a time. All you're going to do is, of course, I put more mica powder in the kits that have more canvases. So what you can do is you can just add a smaller amount if you don't want to use it all at once. You can, sometimes when I'm doing a dual or a triptych, I'll line them all up. I'll mix everything at once. And then I'll create my piece all at once. But if you don't want to do that, just keep a couple of your resin and your hardeners to the side, and mix in small batches, okay? And that comes in the amount of mica, that's where that kind of comes into play. You're basically just using enough mica to cover the bottom part of this cup. That's really all you need to do one canvas, okay? So just keep those amounts in mind. Trying to talk somewhat quick because I don't have a ton of space on my phone. I'm still experimenting with these tutorials and everything. So bear with me, but at least you can rewind if you have any questions, and then you can always text me 804-424-1342, and that goes to my email. So I check periodically through the day. So if you do have any questions, go ahead and ask me. I do ask that you watch the whole tutorial first. That way you can see if your question's asked. And then if it's not, or if it's answered. If it's not answered, feel free to text me and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can, at least within 24 hours, but usually quicker, okay? So, we have our push pins in, we have our plastic down. Gloves, highly recommended. I also put aprons in your kit. I recommend gloves. It's not going to burn you. You'll notice the resin and the hardener don't have a huge, there's not a strong scent, but, so it's not going to damage your skin if you get it on you, but it is a pain in the butt to get off. So if you do get it on you, alcohol will remove it. I'm sure some of us have alcohol laying around somewhere, but any form of alcohol will take it off. Soap and water, it's just going to heat it up. If you think about like tree sap, it's a similar consistency to tree sap. Okay, so alcohol will take it off, but you never want to ever put alcohol on top of your resin once it's cured, because, like I said, it breaks down the resin off of your hands. So we never want to apply alcohol to our artwork after it's finished to dust your artwork, your resin artwork. You always want to just use a damn cloth. Okay, so what we are going to do, we have our cup. I'm going to show you just one canvas, and like I said, if you want to do larger portions, if you did a dual or a triptych, you'll just, repeat this step twice, okay? So I'm just going to pour them into the cup at the same time. I like to do this because it forces it forces it to mix without mixing it, okay? So we're not putting the resin on the bottom, we're not putting the hardener directly on the bottom. They're kind of going in equally. You'll notice the hardener is a lot thinner, so it's going to empty out quicker. Your resin is going to be the thicker portion. That's the portion that you'll have to use a popsicle stick to scrape out everything that's inside. It's kind of like molasses. So get as much out of there as you can, and then you'll start mixing. Mix for, it's usually about 3 minutes. But what I say is, rule of thumb, you can see there's striations in the cup and in the resin. You can see those striations. Once all the striations are gone, then you're good to go. See, I'm not whipping the resin, I'm just scraping the sides. I'm scraping through off of the bottom as well. So you're going to keep scraping the sides, and you're not whipping it because we don't want to create a ton of bubbles, and we don't want to interfere with the curing process. So I'm just going to mix it for the sake of time. I'm not going to sit here and mix it for 3 minutes. I'm going to do it until the striations are gone, but I don't want to sit here and mix it for 3 minutes. Maybe I'll be able to figure out how to speed up this part. Okay, so most of my striations are gone out of there. Again, take longer time. Don't do what I do as I say, okay? So now, actually, before I do this, now what you want to do is take a super small amount of that clear mixed resin and just swirl it on to the canvas. Now this is just enough to saturate your canvas, okay? Not saturate, to cover your canvas. So it's not going to be a ton of resin. My gloves are kind of dirty because I use them to put my mica powder in. Okay, most of the canvas is going to get covered anyway. But I'm just using my gloves to pull the resin across the canvas. Why am I doing this? Because It helps the resin move across the canvas when you pour it. If you pour it directly onto the dry canvas, it just doesn't flow as easy across the canvas. Is it necessary to do this? No, I just kind of prefer this. So I have it spread thinly across, like that. Just use a paper towel, no alcohol, but use a paper towel. You know, this is going to be kind of a gross, gooey mess, okay? So then I'm just putting these here, but you can do this on the side of your, yeah, don't do that. You can do this on the side of your workstation or the side of your canvas, so you don't do what I just did, which is fine. It's not going to ruin anything. So take my resin and I'm going to start pouring into each cup. The amount of resin that you pour into each cup will, depend on how much of that color you're planning on using in your pour. So if you wanted to use, you know, you only wanted a small amount of, say, like glitter resin, don't use all of the glitter if you don't want a ton of glitter in your pour. But say I just wanted maybe an accent color, I wanted black to be my accent color, then you know, don't use as much of your resin in the black. So start smaller, and then I'm actually going to transfer a little bit more of this resin that I poured in the glitter. But start smaller with your pours. That way you can make sure your each color is getting enough resin. Because sometimes you'll pour too much in the first 2 or 3 cups, and then you get to the last one and you don't have any resin left. Kind of like what I did there. I didn't have enough. So when you're stirring, we are not whipping it. If you whip it, it'll start to heat up and it'll get hard very quick. So just a handful of stirs, usually about 10, I say, give or take. You're just stirring enough so that it disperses the mica. If you stir it too much, it can harden fairly quick. Now, after my initial stir, I'm going to go back and check out my colors, because what happens is the some of the mica will force its way to the surface, so you'll have a little bit of a few powder bubbles pop through. One more stir. And you'll feel it starts to cure, it starts to thicken. So once this process is done, you need to start pouring. Don't go and do another task. Make sure that you have the time to finish this, because you cannot stop the resin from curing after this is all mixed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start pouring. You can pinch these also, and it kind of helps with the pouring. Now this one, I'm going to, I think I'm going to focus on my colors on the bottom left portion. I know I kind of got dirty over here. I like white space. I like leaving white space on my canvases with my resin pours. But, you know, it's really just a matter of preference. Um, if you want to cover the whole canvas, you can. You should have plenty of resin to do so. But again, you have to make sure that you work fairly quick because it will, you know, as it gets lower in the cup, it will start to harden and cure. You can use a hair dryer to move the resin across the canvas. It'll also, heating it up will also, it'll make it a little bit thinner. You have to be careful, you don't want to put too much heat on it. I'll use a heat gun to kind of show you what you can do. But you can use, if you don't have a heat gun, you can absolutely use a hair dryer. Medium or high heat, just depends on your hair dryer. You don't need to, just an option. I'm going to go ahead and use the popsicle stick to spread my glitter across right there. Okay, I think okay, so now you can either tip it and it'll start to run across the canvas. But again, you know, it's not going to be a super fast run like if you've done acrylic pours. That's what the blow dryer, you could use a straw too to blow it across. That's what the blow dryer and the heat gun kind of helps with. You'll see it's kind of moving slow. I'm going to encourage it with a heat gun. Some people will, and I'm just going to do one or two. Actually, I'm not going to touch it, but if you've seen the marbling, when people marble, say like a cake or something, and they just run it across like this, and it creates that kind of cool marble effect. You can definitely do that, and it kind of creates, you'll see it kind of will create a channel. I said I wasn't going to do it, and I did it anyway. I'm going to take my gloves off. So as you can see, the heat, it's helping the resin move across the canvas. Now, I think it looks kind of cool like this. Like I said, leaving the white space. You can let it drip and you can manipulate your canvas, move different angles to let it cover your whole canvas. I'm a huge fan of negative space. So I'm going to then tip it. Sorry, not the best angle. I'm going to tip it this way and allow it to work its way back down a little bit, so that it doesn't look like it's all going in one direction. And you can kind of hit it onto the surface too, the corner of the canvas, to kind of encourage it to move. The longer you wait, the less movement you're going to get though. So you can go back with the hairdryer or the heat gun a couple times, but eventually it's going to stop moving. Okay. But this is kind of pretty good. Sorry, I'm too busy. But yeah, so this is, now there's a big change because of the light, sorry about that. So this is kind of the way that I like the way it looks now. Now, you can put racks on it, or you can omit them. You don't need to use them, or the crushed glass, but it's in this little bag. I like to go back and, see, I took my gloves off, so my hands are going to be disgusting. I like to position one or two areas, position the crushed glass along some of the striations. So I'm kind of running it over or along the glitter portion. Up close and see what kind of gives you like a contrast effect. And that's about it. You want to allow it to cure overnight, technically 2 days, actually technically 3 days. If you do not stir it completely, and you don't wait the 3 minutes or until all those striations are gone, you do risk the resin not curing 100%. Okay, so it's very important that you make sure that you empty all of the resin, all of the hardener into the cup. You then make sure that you scrape the edges of the cups and make sure all the striations are gone. Also, very important to realize once you mix that resin with that hardener, time is not on your side. You don't, well, you saw how long this took me from start to finish, about 30 minutes. Of course, you know, you're gonna watch the video and kind of figure out what your colors and where you'd like to position them. But think about all that before you mix the resin with the micas, okay? Because I don't want any of you getting in a situation where you're mixing the mica, there's too much mica, your resin hardens, or your resin doesn't cure. What will happen if everything's not mixed 100%, you will end up with tacky areas on your canvas when it cures. So hopefully nobody runs into that. If you do, I'm happy to provide you with a little bit extra resin. You can pick it up during the kit pickup days. You just have to send me a text in advance. But hopefully none of you will run into the point where you have to go back and re-resin anything. Just be really, really careful about mixing it completely, okay? And then those of you with the larger portions of resin, the dual and the triptych, take into consideration what you want to do. Do you want to do all of your canvases at once? Usually, like I said, I'll line all three of mine up, but if you bought them with the intention of making different artwork, you can do the resin in smaller portions, okay? Just keep in mind the amount of mica and glitter you use is going to be less, just enough to cover the bottom of those cups when you're mixing the resin together. This is because the people that order the larger canvas packages, they receive more mica. So you always want just the amount of mica for to cover the bottom of the cup in proportion to just using one of these cups. If you're going to use two of these cups at the same time, then of course you're going to use double the amount of mica that I showed you. So like I said, just enough mica to cover the bottom of this cup, right? But if you are doing the larger portion, you're going to increase your mica from, you know, here up a little bit further. And if you're using all three of your cups of resin, for those of you that are doing a triptych, again, you're going to do all of your mica and all of your glitter. Or not all of your glitter. You know, like I said, it depends on your preference of the amount of glitter. Okay, so I'd like to thank everybody for purchasing the kits. I hope that you have fun with it. I'm so glad that I'm able to provide these kits as an outlet for all of you. I know it's kind of hard for everybody to be stuck at home right now, but thank you so much. They're helping to keep my business afloat while I'm not able to teach my classes. And it means a lot to me, all of your support. And I hope to continue to keep releasing cool kits in the future. And so just follow me on Facebook, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you.